In April 2023, I made the decision to grow out my undercut, going from a drop fade to a high taper in the front. 5 months later, I was able to braid that new growth into the long portion of my hair. And 15 months later, I'm able to get straight backs, I'm able to get twists, I'm able to do any style under the sun, all because I grew out my undercut the smart way. So in this video, I'm going to break down the plan that I basically used when going through this entire undercut journey process, so you don't have to struggle and go through as many hoops as I did. But not only that, you'll be able to look your best throughout the entire process. Now let me quickly say who this video is for. This video is for anybody who wants to grow out their sides or their undercut from a drop fade, from a high top fade, or whatever style you started off with, but you want to do it in a way that's smart, in a way that you're able to go outside and not have to fret that you're gonna lose 1,000 aura points because you have this giant poof under your fade and it looks awful. You look like trash. So the entire goal of the plan that I'm about to share with you is so that you're able to leave your house looking good, feeling confident, not having to worry about your hair looking, frayed up, looking dusty, as you live your life, right? We want to do it in a way where you look the best throughout the entire process. So that means you are going to have to be doing some repetitive shit, okay? You're going to have to do a bunch of repetitive stuff. It's going to get boring, but trust me, it's all worth it. For this process to work, you need to understand a key mindset that I had when going throughout this journey. All you have to do is make it to 6 months. Why? Because typically it takes about 6 months in your hair journey for you to reach about 3 inches of hair. And once you get to 3 inches of hair, that's usually the mark where a lot of braiders and stylists are able to grip your hair. So it's to a point where you can actually braid it. The entire point of everything we're going to do in this video is to get you to that 6-month period looking your best so that you can braid the short hair into the long hair. Why is that important? Because that's the key to after 6 months. We're going to get into that nitty-gritty stuff in the end. But basically the overview is you're going to get to the point where you're able to braid that short hair into the long hair and spam that style so that no one can even tell that you're growing out your sides. Just follow me along this plan, bro. We doing a money heist type of deal today. When growing out your sides, you're typically going to go through 3 stages, and we're going to have a plan for each stage. That is the waves length phase. This is typically between month 0 to month 3 of you growing out your hair. Your hair is basically flat, it's basically this length right here. And then when you get to like month 3, it's going to be, like some laid down flat waves. Then you're going to have the very short mini afro phase. That's going to be from months 3 to 6. This is the hardest part. So you're going to have to lock in with me, pay attention, take notes, and then you're going to have the braids portion or braid length phase. That's when your hair is long enough to where you're able to braid it. You're able to do styles like 2-strand twists and stuff like that. So we're going to go over each stage because there's a different plan for each part of the hair journey. Now, of course, once you start to get a little length with your afro, it doesn't hurt to, use a leave-in conditioner, or you could even use a deep conditioner or something like that. Throughout the first 3 months of growing out your sides, it's very simple when it comes to doing this routine where you just want to be focused on scalp care. That is your #1 priority. You will not be getting any haircuts throughout this stage. I know that sounds obvious, but you'll be surprised how many guys cannot stand the fact that they have this little afro going on underneath their long hair, and they want to mitigate the damage by getting a low taper or styling it just a little bit, or getting their barber just to clean it up a little bit. Don't do that, because that's going to mess up your progress. The only thing that you should be doing is getting consistent lineups. I suggest that you learn how to line up your own hair so you could take, you could take that responsibility on yourself. It's not that hard to learn, and I have a video that goes over that. Go and check that out. But do not be getting any type of low taper fade or nothing. No haircuts. During this period, I'm going to limit you to styles like mini twists, because you essentially just want to cover up this progress for as long as possible. And it's easy to do this because your hair is still short. Your hair isn't to the point where it creates a poof where it looks like those twists are levitating. So take my advice, stick to styles like mini twists, 2-strand twists. You can even get box braids if the parting is, pretty low. But like I said, during this time, you really want to focus on hiding that progress. Hiding that progress. Do not, and I repeat, do not do styles like cornrows during the first 1 to 3 months of growing out your sides, because you are exposing all of that new growth, all of that progress, and that goes against our plan to make you look as good as possible during this time. So stick to my advice. Use styles like mini twists or box braids that have very tiny parts. You want to make sure that your hair looks full throughout this process. Now onto the second stage of growing out your sides. This is the afro stage. This is for months 3 to 6, where your hair is very voluminous. So if you do styles like mini twists or box braids, it's kind of gonna look like your mini twists are levitating, right? Especially if you get just regular twists, you're going to see that afro through the parts, so it's a little harder for you to essentially hide it. So on the hiding portion of things, you're gonna want to be doing styles like curly hair routines or wash and goes. I have a ton of examples on my channel. I'll put one in one of the corners right now, so you could go and check that one out after this video. But by doing curly hair routines or wash and goes, you're able to kind of blend in that little poof, that little afro into the bigger portion of your hair, since your hair has a lot of volume. So you're gonna want to be doing those high volume styles like curly hair routines. Now when it comes to the maintenance portion of your actual undercut, the undercut that you're growing out, this is where you'll start to put in a little bit more effort when it comes to your maintenance routine. You could be doing the LCO method. You can even style this portion of your hair separately from the longer hair. So what I used to do is when I would do my curly hair routines, I would do my little parts for my big section, and then I would just keep that separate from everything that was down below, and I'd do that separately. So I would go in with my little leave-in conditioner first, and I kind of just rake that through my undercut section, and then I'll go in with my little curl cream or my little oil and then a gel and something like that. So basically you'll moisturize your undercut separately from the long portion of your hair. You will only be doing this maintenance routine once a week. So that means when you wash your hair, you're going to moisturize your undercut, then you're going to style your undercut. You're going to moisturize, detangle, all of that, and style your undercut on that one day. You will not be detangling your undercut throughout the week. You will not be moisturizing it throughout the week. You could use a spray leave-in conditioner if it really feels dry, but essentially what you want to do, you want to moisturize and then forget about it. Moisturize, then forget for a week. Okay, this is going to limit that breakage throughout this process. You'll actually be able to see progress in growing out your undercut because you won't be enduring so much breakage by manipulating it frequently. So to wrap up this section, you're going to be leaning more on curly hair routines or hairstyles that have a lot of volume that fro can blend into. Then you'll also be using a moisturization type of routine when it comes to your afro. Basically, whenever you style your hair, you're going to be styling and moisturizing the undercut portion because it's long enough now where you have to focus on moisture. Still maintain that same oiling your scalp routine. That's going to help with your entire head, honestly. So make sure that you're paying attention to scalp care and use the combination of those styles to hide the progress and keep your undercut in a state where it can grow quickly. So if you followed all that advice, it was a hard, grueling process, but you will have made it to month 6. Now, from 6 onward, our entire routine, our entire plan is going to change. This is the point where your undercut should be long enough to do braids. Now, we're going to abuse that. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to get a style like pop smoke braids. I advise this style because when you're doing cornrows straight back, you're really relying on the long portion of your hair. But if you're going from a high top, that means that if you're doing a braid here, all of that is your new growth. We want to abuse the long part of our hair in styling the short portion of our hair. That's why I advise you do pop smoke braids, because it starts from the side and it goes down. So basically, no matter which way the braid is going, you can basically be assured that the long portion of your hair will be weaved together with it. So once you're able to do this, right? Remember how I told you you weren't getting any haircuts, you weren't doing anything like that. If you plan to get any type of taper, whether it is a high taper, a mid taper, a low taper, something like that, what I want you to do is you're going to go to your braider, preferably one that has some knowledge on haircuts. Otherwise, you might need your barber to part it off. But let's go with the example that your braider knows what they're doing. Your braider is going to part off the sections that she's going to cornrow, but she is also, he or she, whoever, is going to part off the section that you want to cut off, right? So what I had my braider do, I had my tapered hairline already, so I just had her part off this. All of this was growth. She parted that off, parted it off on the next side, and then she braided the hair, and then I went to a barber. Well, I barber myself. I cut my own hair, and then I cut that portion off myself. This is going to ensure that the part that you cut off is all the same length, but not only that, all of the rest of your hair is going to be like at a good length. Because if you go to the barber himself, the barber's job is to blend from no hair to long hair. So that means it's going to make a gradient from the shortest part of your hair to the longest part. That means in between, there's going to be some unevenness. That's why I say to part off the hair first. So there's the hair that you're going to keep growing, and then there's hair that you're going to keep short, and there's not going to be a gradient in between the two. Right? So, sum it up, go to your braider. They're going to part off the hair that they're going to actually cornrow, and they're also going to part off the hair that you're going to cut off. This is going to ensure there's no overlap, there's no gradient in between the two. So that way you get your braids and you get your you know, your hairline or whatever style you want, whether it's a low taper, mid taper, or whatever. So you just got your first braid style with your newfound length when it came to your undercut, parted off whatever haircut you wanted to get, whether it was a low taper or mid taper or whoever. Now what do? We are going to spam this process. On average, your hair grows half an inch every single month. The reason why a lot of people don't see progress throughout that month is because they're manipulating their hair, washing their hair, styling their hair, moisturizing their hair. Through that bothering process, you're likely going to encounter breakage, which is when the ends of your hair snap off. And basically you have to look at the net growth, the hair you grew minus the hair that you lost due to breakage. What we're going to do is we're going to minimize breakage as much as possible by getting braids at the beginning of the month, keeping those braids in from anywhere to 2 to 6 weeks. I like to stay within the 3 to 4 week range. So basically you kept it in for about a month. Then you're going to take out your hair. You're going to take out the braids. You're going to wash your hair, and then you're going to get braids again and do it all over. From my experience, that whole process of growing out your sides only becomes difficult when you realize that you're juggling a lot of stuff, or you have to do a lot of stuff. Your moisturizing routine, you're detangling, you're styling the long portion of your hair. You're trying to make sure that you're oiling your scalp and doing this style and doing that style, and then you have to make sure that everything, all the volume and stuff, that gets very difficult. By braiding the short hair into the long hair and keeping that style in for weeks at a time, you limit all of that to just paying attention to your scalp, because you don't have to detangle, you don't have to style, you don't have to do anything like that. This is what's going to make it so much easier for you, and make it so much easier for you to stay consistent with this whole thing, because you don't have to be micromanaging your hair every single second. So to sum that up, you're going to get braids. You're going to keep them in for a couple weeks, take them out, wash your hair, and then do braids all over again. And you're going to continue doing this until your undercut is long enough where you could braid it by itself. Because if it's like month 6, you're kind of going to be pushing it to try and get it into the long hair. But you want to get it to a point where your undercut can braid by itself. You could just put it in 2 cornrows underneath, or you could do twists underneath, or whatever, right? All we're trying to do is squeeze as much life, squeeze as much growth out of our hair as possible throughout this time. So you're going to spam that protective style method until you get to a year in your hair journey. I'm at 15 months right now, and it was when I hit a year that I realized I was able to just, with the style that I have now, I'm able to do cornrows straight back and everything is good. If you want to do 2-strand twists, what you could do is just cornrow the undercut, you know, put in a little bun underneath, and then do mini twists on the top. You have so much more options now. The reason why I love this plan is throughout this process, you're abusing the long portion of your hair to hide the progress. And that means you've limited the whole time. If you were to grow your hair from the beginning, if you were to cut off your hair and start from the beginning, say you started at 3 years like I did, right? It would take me 3 years to get back to the point where I was. But if you grow out your sides using this method, you only have to look somewhat scruffy for 6 months. Then you're able to braid your hair, and it's just a time skip to get to wherever you need to go to. I'm not even fretting about my hair right now. Technically it's going to take my hair maybe like another 2 or 3 years to catch up to the long portion of my hair, and then I can trim everything to the same length by going to the salon. I don't think I mentioned that yet. Honestly, if you've been growing out your hair for anywhere longer than 2 years, don't even fret about when you have to trim it all to the same length, because if you use this method, your hair is going to look good throughout the majority of the process, so you don't even need to trim it to the same length. I hope this video gave you guys some insight in how to grow your undercut in an efficient way so that you actually look good throughout the process. I don't believe that anybody needs to look scruffy, needs to look off throughout this process. We all know about sticking to the process or following the mission. You don't have to look off. You don't have to lose aura throughout this process. There is a way that you can basically look your best throughout it, and I hope that this video helped you out with that. If you guys have any other tips that you learned throughout growing out your sides, drop them down below in the comments so that other guys can benefit. Even I can benefit from some of the tips and advice that you guys give. And if you like this video, you're definitely gonna like this one, so I advise you check it out. That's all for me, and I'll see you guys in the next video.